29th day of January 2023. I'm going to be your host tonight, Dana Durnford. And I'm also known as the Gamma Goat. And you can call me at 709. Keep it short. I'm not doing that good tonight. 589-4406. 4406 709. It's on your screen if you're not paying attention. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We didn't do a show on Thursday. I simply wasn't healthy enough to do a show. We got the truck into the shop and we have that fixed. And that, let you give you a quick update on that stuff. We also had to replace the fuel line all the way up to the injectors, because it's one full piece, right? $660, $653 actually. And it was amazing. James Lucid donated $512 to get that done. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to get it done so quick. So that's a huge deal to have that back. Totally thrilled to have that up and running. It was 4 hours of labor. They should never charge 4 hours of labor, but I couldn't do it myself anymore. I'm just not healthy enough. We got a poll for everybody tonight. Is shipping food worldwide from Fukushima and surrounding prefectures, should that be considered crimes against humanity? And so Fukushima is in the central prefecture. Those 14 markers are 14 prefectures where the food was banned for a decade by 55 countries, which means the food should be banned for thousands of years. But what they done was, with no consent of the countries, a handful of people with a handshake removed all restrictions with no scientific, no academics, no universities, inputs whatsoever, nothing. And so the industry has definitely turned its back on you. And they're so crazy, they're actually growing food alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation for sale in a no-go zone, in a nuclear wasteland where nobody should be. And this is why we have a poll. We're trying to warn you how much danger you're in. You're in real danger. And there's nobody else, unfortunately, providing this documentation. And that's frightening. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Your media has sold you out now for 80 years with propaganda. So when they describe radioactivity from anywhere, a man-made anthropogenic, as a banana and sunshine and airplanes, climbing mountains, sleeping next to somebody, and peanut butter and rafting in a river for 15 minutes, this is absurdness. We don't have a planet anymore. We have an industry that has now destroyed every species' future. So think about this for the Japan Times column. You were warned in 2011, weren't you? Japan Times column, as the public, possibly worldwide, sickens over time. The truth will come out about Fukushima, radioactive fallout, and intentional poisoning. This is intentional poisoning. Continuing to grow food in amid nuclear wastelands. And so my last show was on just the bags. And they picked up bags in 7 different prefectures, 1-ton bags like this. Totals are anywhere from 30 million to 60 million of these 1-ton bags. It's equal to a row of traffic around the planet 6 times. Bumper to bumper. Fukushima peaches on sale outside of Japan. Alert. So this was a valid concern and still is and always will be for many, many millenniums. I'm trying to warn you and inform you, and I don't have an opinion. There's no conjectures. Everything's based upon well-vetted. And so I have so much information about this subject. I can bring you the most pertinent documentation to articulate the urgency and the issues. Or, I can just overwhelm you with thousands of academic studies on the topic. And I've seen, over the years, we've seen the industry where I would roll out, say, 500 studies, and the nuclear industry would pick one or two studies and then harp about those studies and ignore the other 498 studies. First off, why did they do so many studies in such a subject? The whole story is craziness. Let me just get you up to speed on Japan because of the poll tonight. Japan government promotes the idea you're racist if you avoid Fukushima food. Well, you can't be racist if you don't like a food. But that's the whole point, right? Oh, you're not eating because you're anti-Japanese or something. The Japanese government, nuclear activists to be constantly spied upon. The Ministry of Justice. Think about that. Nuclear activists to be constantly spied upon. So when you're not allowed to have a public or a free debate or conversation about a subject, that's the subject you need to start flushing out. So mutated plants, mutated animals are radioactive insects spreading contamination from Fukushima. Up to 99% of the offspring died after eating low-level contaminated food. Fukushima radiation causing serious biological effects. It's a major irreversible shift in the ecosystem. Humans are next. X-rays-like images show how radioactivity spread throughout the bodies of the wildlife. X-rays-like images shows the spread of radioactivity in the trees and the plants and everything else. Equivalent of miscarriages, stillbirths, and malformations. So, like this, there is no debate about this subject, okay? There's denial, but there's no debate. We can't debate something so clear-cut. There's nobody, no academic, no Einsteins, no Oppenheimers can debate my documentation. They're unassailable. The evidence is, there's nothing fun about what I'm doing. I'm trying to make your world and give you a future, and give your loved ones a future by educating you upon a subject you better get to know, and you better start understanding. You better start making changes in your lives. You're not immune. And they're coming after you by exporting food from the nuclear wasteland itself. They're completely out of control. There is no checks and balances. Rice grown nearby the Fukushima plant cleared for sale. The farmer says we wouldn't eat it. We feel guilty growing it and selling it. These are 1-ton bags of radiation, and downhill is the rice fields. Listen, you don't have to have a green thumb to appreciate the horror of this. And the children, for instance, at 11 becquerels a kilogram will start to see permanent heart problems. These are absurd numbers. After the nuclear meltdowns, America raised their standards to 1,000 becquerels a kilogram. So did Europe. But 11 becquerels a kilogram has catastrophic effects upon your children. 50 becquerels a kilogram is irreversible heart damage. 50 becquerels a kilogram in adults is permanent lesions to their organs. But it doesn't stop. at that. That's the instant, one of the many 1,800 illnesses that are going to manifest from this. Imagine if you had a street in your community where 7 people dropped dead in a little over 1 year. Imagine 7 people dropping dead on a single street. Try wrapping your mind around that. Think about the Nobel Prize winners saying that the only way to preserve human life is to completely turn away from nuclear power because of the very stuff I'm showing you. Cesium-137 immediately damages the heart muscles. There's over 20,000 spike extra heart attacks in America after Fukushima in, I think it was a 14-week period in just a small area. That was just one of the many things manifest. I've seen the same thing in Japan, where the death rates might give the creeps to some people, or to everybody. The number of deaths was up 12.5%. 12,700 extra people died of just heart attacks in a single month, a spike. And you've seen similar numbers with cancers and cardiac diseases. So, there's so much information that is available, but yet the world seems to be sleepwalking into extinction. 35.8% of the Fukushima children have thyroid tumors. Girls 4 times more and twice as big. And that's 13,646 out of 40,000. When it used to be 1 in a million. And I can guarantee you it has a lot to do with the food continue to grow and ship throughout the country. Canada has been flooded. 55 countries banned it in 14 prefectures, but not Canada. And everybody seems to think that they're immune to that and that it won't hurt them and that they're not vulnerable and that they're safe. And this is obviously not true. How can that be true, see? 2019, 14.2% of children, neonates and infants, needed open heart surgery per 100,000. 14,200 out of 100,000 new births across the entire country needed open heart surgery. And this is why we got a poll, because that's coming to your world too. Is shipping food worldwide from the nuclear wasteland known as Fukushima and the surrounding prefectures, should that be considered crimes against humanity? Well, this is not a very difficult poll, and a lot of people give me a hard time. Dana, give us a difficult poll. Well, the idea of the poll is for all the new people coming through, because they might not watch the video, but they might see the poll and say, wait a second, there's something, right? There's something more going on. Maybe I should hang out and watch some of this and try to see. You know what I mean? And then by you folks participating and acknowledging the issue, the wanderers that are coming through all of a sudden says, wait a second, everybody's on board? Holy shit, I had no idea I had to worry about food from shithead Japan. No pun intended, but shithead Japan. And then, so again, the last one, as the public, possibly worldwide, sickens over time, the truth will come out about Fukushima. Worldwide sickens over time. Well, time is now. We're almost at 12 years. Hi, everybody. Everybody's doing okay. I see Dana Nasana had 12 feet of snow. Dana, getting greedy, taking all the snow for yourselves up there. You can have it, trust me. That's an absurd amount, man. Holy cow. So this story has been banging around out there for several days. The original story was they lost this capsule of cesium. They said it was 19 becquerels. which is not very much, right? But they also called it deadly. So I'm very confused. The story has changed over several days, and this is the latest itineration of it. Missing radioactive capsule in Western Australia. Officials admitted it was weeks, not a day, not 2 days, but weeks before anybody realized it was gone. Which doesn't surprise me. We're talking about the nuclear industry. Fire and Emergency Services officials say the capsule left Rio Tinto mines. This is a uranium mine. On the 10th of January in Australia, it was not found missing until 15 days after it was transported. It's extremely tiny on top of that. But they're calling for aircrafts to fly 1,400 miles of the roads and try to pick it up. 19 gigabecquerels is 19 billion atomic decays every second. 19 billion. The authorities are scrambling to find a missing radioactive capsule that is a fraction of the size of a 10-cent coin, conceding it was not found missing until 2 weeks after it left Rio Tinto mine site. The story before this morning was 19 becquerels a kilogram. That might be in this pile or tomorrow's pile. I gotta go to the hospital tomorrow and get checked out. At a news conference on Saturday, an incident management team, including the Department of Health and Police, has been formed. So this is really absurd now. It's much more dangerous than they're alluding to, see? A management team, the Department of Health and the Police has been formed. Specialist equipment has been requested from agencies within the Commonwealth, which is like Britain and Canada and other countries, including the Australian Degenerate Radiation Protection and Nuclear Scumbag Agency. The article was amended today. An earlier version said it was 19 becquerels. But the ones before that, the day before that, never acknowledged any numbers whatsoever. And we'll get to that today or tomorrow or Wednesday. I got 3 shows ready to go, which is over 1,000 of these clicks, right? So I've been busy because I can't really do anything else, just sit in a chair. I can't get up and do anything without almost... So we'll get checked out tomorrow anyway. We'll get an answer. Hopefully it's nothing like Kevin. And if it is anything like Kevin, then we know what's happened to me and Kevin, right? Extraction of spent fuel from Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan postponed for 2 years. This is Reactor 6. Oh, ain't that interesting? Ain't that interesting? I'm going to get that in a second. Let's shout out. Hello to everybody worldwide. Welcome to the Nuclear Scumbag Show. That's the only way you can describe the show. We cover nuclear scumbags all day long. You have to treat nuclear power plants as a meteorite coming at your planet. If you don't, you're making a fatal mistake for your future and the future generations and your loved ones in the species. We're on YouTube and they're censoring the daylights out of me. But it's the platform that works best on everybody's devices. Subscribe, like, share, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget to click the shitty little bell, push the little buttons. Consider sharing me on other social networking sites, because I'm too busy to do it myself. But if you do, consider that trolls will come looking. Not Spider-Man. It's not going to help you, okay? The Hulk is not going to help you. Superman and Wonder Woman not going to help you. Whatever that one there is not going to help you. All these are fables meant to deteriorate the bond with the real heroes, your parents, your siblings, your aunts and your uncles, and the people in your communities. Right? That's what sports is meant to, is to denigrate the heroes and give you false heroes so that the real ones don't get any support. There is no magic wand. Okay, maybe one or two. There's no actual magic wand that's going to fix the nuclear industry. Okay, back to this story. I'm afraid, back to this story. Just bear with me, because Reactor 6 is what we're going to talk about. This is what they're talking about. It's delayed for another while. Here we go. Hopefully, bear with me. It only takes me a second to get back up to speed here. Yeah, this is such a strange... Nuclear is such a strange creature anyway. They released in 2020... Let me start here. Okay, so this is about Reactor 6, but I want to show you pictures that were released in January 2020. They were redacted. They were pixelated. Except for a couple of them, right? This was an unusual picture, but alongside of it, everything is pixelated. Now, they were taken from drones, right? So from the drones, everything kind of looks normal, right? But once you start zooming in, you start seeing a lot of pixelation. Now, this set right here, that's the dry storage. On the way to Reactor 6, that's damage. You can see the damage to some of the tanks along the coastline. But as you... Now, Reactor 6 is the top one, the very farthest one. And so this is Reactor 5, but that's Reactor 6. It's completely pixelated. It's redacted. Now, I don't know why they released this on the 10th anniversary, and we've done a whole presentation just on these pictures. They were from a drone, a high-quality drone, and you had to zoom in to understand that they were pixelated, because you didn't see that from the original shots from the drone. Now, nobody, and I mean nobody's ever covered these pictures. I'm the only person that I know of that's actually asked any questions or zoomed in on any of the pictures. There's nobody's done that. So you'll never see that anywhere else. So why is the pump house, the reactor, and the stack over there pixelated and redacted if there was no issues at Reactor 6? Okay, so let's cover that story of Reactor 6. And this is what they're talking about. Extraction of spent fuel from... And then Reactor 6 is not in that picture, by the way. It's over behind me. It's to the north. Nuclear power plant in Japan postponed for 2 more years. So, like you said, the big question is, why is it redacted? Why is the stack and the pump house in front of it redacted? So when you are in the drone, when I start zooming in, you can see everything is pixelated. And I remember saying to myself, well, you know, we got 730 pictures. There's the video is in my playlist. It's easy to find if you want to watch it. And I bring you an absurd amount of documentation in that particular presentation. A lot of these presentations will get you up to speed on each of these subjects, but they're complicated. So, you know, it takes a couple of hours of documentation to cover all the different attributes that need to be covered. The extraction of the spent fuel pulled from a pool on the 6th power unit, and they don't mention the word Reactor 6 or Unit 6 a single time, but they call it power unit. That's unusual. Will complete it in the first half of 2025 instead of 2023. Why ain't they removed they claim they got the fuel out of the pools from reactor 4 and 3, which don't even exist, but they're only getting around to reactor 6 now, 12 years later. The work on extracting the fuel from the pool to 6 power unit began in May last year. Now, we've got no documentation to support that assertion. Nothing. Not a single scrap of information. The fuel was first transferred to the common pool in another building. Well, the common spent fuel pool was behind reactor 4. I'll show you that. Bear with me, hopefully. I think that's it right here. Yeah, this is reactor 4. That's the common spent fuel pool up right there. It's redacted. The entire building is redacted. So which is on the same level as reactor 3 and 4. Again, that's reactor 4, reactor 3 redacted. The stacks are redacted. And over there, the redacted is the common spent fuel pool. So transferring fuel, he said that it's already done. Some of it is, why don't we have any headlines from that? One thing we know about the Japanese is they like the media, they like to gloat. And because we cover this 7 days a week, 365 days a year, there's zero reason that I don't have that type of documentation already, if it's true, see? And I can guarantee if it was true, well, if they actually had done it, they're making it up that anything was transferred last year, which leads us to the conclusion they had a meltdown, obviously, at reactor 6. Not just from the fact that everything is redacted, but the fact that they're making claims that are unsubstantiated. The process was halted when employees found a rust-like plaque on the lid of one of the containers. And the tightness of the containers could no longer be guaranteed and work had to be suspended. None of that makes any sense. This said, we don't have any evidence that they've done anything like this last year. So the common spent fuel pool, or each reactor unit, there's 2 pools at each reactor, had a capacity 8,000 assemblies, which are 1,800 pounds each. The common fuel pool had a capacity of 6,840. That don't make any sense because the common spent fuel pool is supposed to be taking fuel from all the reactors. But we're talking about Japan, so nothing is going to make any sense, right? Nothing's going to make any sense. When it comes to nuclear, there's not much that makes any sense anyway. It's always a storm. Everything is always hazy. It's always, and robots are in there fixing everything. That's what they're claiming, right? This is simply not true. These robots go into Fukushima Daiichi so you don't have to. Again, there's no evidence that a robot can survive close to the reactors. So the media, of course, these buildings are 190 feet by 150 feet. These little contraptions are not going to resolve anything. You're talking about doses at 1 million sieverts will fry electronics from a quarter mile away. These little guys spray down and vacuum up radioactive debris at Fukushima. And so this is what the industry is really good at, is making stuff up. Look, they're spraying radioactive debris at the nuclear wasteland. And, sure, yeah, And nuclear scientists are everywhere. They're camped out in the reactor buildings, right? With the Boy Scouts. The plume, this is a 19-day model of the plume right here, 468 hours, 19.5 days. This covers the whole planet. The entire planet. The idea of a nuclear power plant having a meltdown is one that strikes fear into the hearts of most people. It's a massively dangerous event that can affect people around the world, as I just showed you. Not can, but will, in a very fraction. Now, gas, oil, and coal emissions don't cover the planet. Nuclear is the only thing you see models of that. You'll never see a model for gas, oil, and coal that looks like the nuclear fallout. It's a massively dangerous event that can affect people around the world and take decades or more to contain or clean up. Well, you can't contain it and you can't clean it up. And even then, leading areas becoming uninhabitable for millennia. No, it's uninhabitable, long past the human experience. The most recent major nuclear disaster happened at the Fukushima Daiichi and saw several reactors melt their fuels and 8 fuel pools, some of which then went on to have hydrogen explosions. The hydrogen is caused by the meltdown itself, creates the hydrogen gas. The explosion is because it's melted down. So the cover story was it was a hydrogen explosion, not a nuclear explosion. But that's exactly, it was a nuclear. It's the zirconium cladding. When it melts, it's exposed to oxygen. It'll catch fire at 1800 degrees. It'll burn, and that will ignite the uranium plutonium pellets that are inside the rods. But unlike the scene from HBO, Chernobyl is not using people to do this deadly work. It's using robots. Again, this is madness to suggest the robots. And so whoever wrote this story, I would like to personally kick the shit out of them. Robotics is cool other than those terrifying military-industrial complexes, Boston Dynamics robots. And so whoever wrote that story, I incredibly disrespect you. Explain Japan's decision to flush Fukushima wastewater into the ocean. And so this is about the tanks, for instance, that were built to manipulate the consensus, right? To make people complacent and thinking that the radioactive water was going into tanks instead of the Pacific Ocean. This was Germany's model of the stuff going into the ocean over a 6-year period. This is a model of the Norwegian Institute for Air Research of 20 days of emissions airborne. So it covered the whole planet, let alone the ocean immediately. We're getting there. Quality journalism when you need it. So tell you nothing but lies and then claim that they're journalists on top of that. Some bad news for anybody who likes bread and toast. We got a lot of studies on this, by the way. Most bread out there is GMO. Eating toast harm to health may outweigh the convenience. And I strongly urge people to reconsider eating a lot of it. I love bread too, but you're going to have to discipline yourself. This is the worst thing you can do to your body. And toast is the second worst thing you can do to your body. Because of what it does to your system. It's very, very, very terrible. And it's one of the major contributors to obesity. Don't eat bread for breakfast. Try to give up sugar. Sugar is your enemy. All I can do is that's an important study, and I can't not mention it now once I came across it, right? And bread is your enemy, folks. Make no mistake about it. And sugar is too. So as soon as you give up sugar, your eyesight becomes better. Your face becomes thinner. Because sugar, your joints start feeling better. You start losing weight right away too. Because after 2 weeks, your body now is burning fat, and it's not. It's consuming it, is a better way to put it. So it stays off. It doesn't come back, right? The first thing starts coming from your body is your water. The excess water from juices and pops and teas and coffees gathers up in your body and makes everything really puffy, right? And adds to your weight. So that's a couple of different ways that you can change your life for the better. And I cheated tonight, but the last 3 days I had no sugar whatsoever. I always put a little tiny bit of brown sugar maybe, or honey in my tea, but I've had to give it up. And every once in a while I break and I have to put a little bit into it. And the same thing with milk and cream and that. I really like it, but I have to do without it because that's the right thing to do, right? Federal regulators deny PG&E's request to resume review of Diablo Canyon. I'm not sure what that's all about. It's on a fault line, right? The Mothers for Peace have fought the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant in San Luis since before it opened. That's inspiring, isn't it? So in the 70s, they were protesting it before it was even completed or halfway built or anything like that. Well, before it was actually conceived to be put in that area. This was a disgusting article. Why is it 99% of the stories from Australia about nuclear are vicious scumbags? And like, when I'm saying vicious scumbags, brother, I mean vicious scumbags. Just incredible scumbags. Why Australia might miss out. Let's look at the poll one more time here. Is shipping food worldwide from Fukushima and surrounding prefectures crimes against humanity? We got 100%. Wow, awesome. We had 100% on our last poll. There's a couple of people accidentally voted opposite. I got a lot of polls here, yes, right? And very rare do I go to the no. I don't know. Why Australia might miss out on the nuclear renaissance? Well, first off, it's illegal. It's constitutionally illegal to have a nuclear power plant. And they screwed up. It should be constitutionally illegal to produce the uranium to poison people worldwide. One of your biggest enemies is fuel pools. They're constantly hemorrhaging radiation. They're still splitting the atoms with no containment now, see? In case you missed it, madness monster Bill Gates is in Australia. We covered it last week. He spent a few days in shitty nuclear territory in Australia, attending events and giving out speeches like candies. Nuclear renaissance. I spent much of last year talking about the resurgence of nuclear across the world. That's an interesting statement, because there is no nuclear renaissance. Just people trying to artificially inflate the lies and conflate it with facts. Europe in particular has had to rely on this old nuclear plant to shore up their networks after blocking Russia oil and gas. Europe in particular. Because they blocked Russia on oil and gas, they were forced to use nuclear that they got. See, that doesn't even make sense, right? They caused inflation in their own countries by blocking the commodities from the only country that can supply the quantity that was necessary for an industrialized country, which is the definition of scumbag idiots, right, to do something like that. Are they going to block all the commodities from America when they attack the next country? Of course not, Dana. So why now? What made Ukraine? At the time, there was 59 other wars going on. You didn't put sanctions and land, sea, and air embargoes against any other countries just for the one war in Ukraine, which wasn't a war. You had NATO had invaded Ukraine and was a direct threat on purpose. My point is the nuclear renaissance seems to be up on us, which is absurd to suggest it. What the hell are you talking about? Nuclear is falling, for goodness sakes. And while Australia seems destined to sit it out from a technological perspective, it could play a role in other ways. Uranium, which is produced in Australia, mines could profit from the nuclear resurgence. Well, like last year, and the year before, and the year before that, the most Australia makes off nuclear fuel in a single year is about $1 billion. So, like, there's so many other industries that tops that. Why is nuclear? Calling nuclear some... And, of course, the emissions from the nuclear poison everybody worldwide. Bill Gates comments, he singled out how nuclear fission and fusion are different. Fusion has potential to provide the world with a nearly limitless and cheap form of power forever. The challenge is turning the theory into reality. So why not turn geothermal into a reality? Why put all your eggs in a basket that you haven't cracked and you don't have a solution for it? Why would, you're putting it into a basket with a hole in it. That's what fusion is. Why not put it into geothermal? If you took all that money and put it into geothermal, we wouldn't have an energy crisis anywhere on the entire planet. And if you stopped murdering everybody by growing 1 billion pounds of food in a nuclear wasteland, which is just one prefecture. So from the 14 prefectures that were banned by 55 countries, it's more than 5 billion pounds a year being exported. 5 billion pounds. 5 billion. Fukushima, just in rice, is almost 1 billion pounds a year. 6,000 square miles. This is a genocide machine. Look, I provide the documentation, and it warrants the warnings. It warrants the urgency. It warrants dedication, and it warrants crime tribunals. They should never be shipping food from a nuclear wasteland. You can't quantify doing something like that. Monday morning. So this person here who wrote that article from Australia, Ryan Clarkson, is a despicable creature. But it never stops. Every article is like that when it comes to nuclear. There's no other subject that has this kind of degenerate scumbags. It's really like it's stunning. We've been doing this for so many years. You can't deny the facts any longer. Memorandum of Understanding strengthens Canadian nuclear research. Now, we've been hearing these narratives for quite a while. The Canadian National Nuclear Laboratories, Chalk River, which is one of the first nuclear meltdowns on the planet, confirmed. We don't know how many is out there that's not confirmed. For instance, Santa Susana in the United States was 460 times more radioactive fallout than 3 Mile Island. It's equal to 460 3 Mile Island meltdowns. But yet nobody mentions it, only 3 Mile Island, which is only 1/460 of Santa Susana radioactive fallout. It's very convenient for the nuclear industry to leave that out. There's 500,000 people built their homes within 10 miles of it because they don't know any better since the meltdown. Memorandum of Understanding between the Canadian scumbag National Laboratories and TRIUMF Particle Accelerator Center, which is the same spot. 2 nuclear research. Well, the whole thing is one nuclear research. It's just the money grab, right? They contributed nothing to the future of humanity on top of that. The only thing they contributed is the destruction of humanity and the species. They literally have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. It's on behalf of the Federal Crown Corporation, Atomic Energy of Canada. Atomic Energy of Canada, of course, this is a criminal. The people that worked there were the worst of the worst in the nuclear industry and got promoted to the worst of the worst of the nuclear industry. Sweden molds building new small nuclear reactors. Well, what? Like, it doesn't exist anywhere. But this is 50 years, the same as fusion, 50 years of posturing. They still don't have, so you're talking 8, 9, 10 years to build a fabled small modular reactor. If you start right now, nobody started right now. So if you start right now, it's 8 to 10 years. Then you got to get the flaws out of it. It's the first one. It's a prototype. It's not right. They got to run it for an extended period, for several years, to find the flaws. Then they got to redesign it through the engineering, which is 1 million pieces of paper. That has to be resubmitted to the non-regulatory agencies, aka nuclear regulatory agencies, which takes about 7 to 8 years to go through all the paperwork again. And then the engineers now, when they get maybe they'll find flaws and redesign it again. Then they got to build another. And each design has to go through this. So you're talking 25 years. And even then, now you got to start making your die machines to start building manufacturing parts. It's a very long, stupid process. But why would you put all the time and energy and monetary into something so short-sighted, far away, rather than... Because the ratepayers are paying for this, right, ultimately. Why not invest it in something that exists like geothermal, tidal energy, which don't need storage? And then there's tons of storage solutions. Why is anybody even considering batteries with so many storage solutions available? Because it's a good way of making the industry look silly, see? And what they're strangling the planet's future and present and the species. No way the species can survive what they got done. And it's very doubtful the human species can survive what they got done. Sweden's state-owned energy company, Vattenfall, which legacy is just horrific. It's just horrific legacy. Hello, Mike. How are you, sir? Just hang on. I want to try a little experiment here, if you don't mind. Let's try this again. Hang on. That didn't work. That worked for me earlier. That worked. No, you're okay. I got a plug so I can plug in the phone externally into my sound system.
There. That's clean.
That's fine. Yeah. No, I screwed up. I had it working earlier. So the idea was to bring you right into the system, right? So it'd be a lot more cleaner. I got another cord out there. I should have changed it out. I had it working earlier. You got something you'd like to share with us, Mike?
Yeah. No, I don't know if you were on Thursday night, but
No, I wasn't. No.
From my end, my set. Okay, and but YouTube put some very mean detractors for those of us who are looking for you. They put those out there. One of them, in particular, I want to mention was someone who says Minnie Mouse.
No, don't put them up on my site, man. Don't give them a platform.
No, I'm not doing that.
No, I'm just saying anybody that's attacking me, I'm under siege for years and years and years, right? I'm just cautioning you, Mike. Go ahead.
And so I was watching this crap that they're trying to funnel me, and they couldn't speak in specifics or science against you. They just had to make fart noises with their mouths and do ridiculous things with the videos, and it was just absurd.
Wow, eh?
Over there.
That's desperation.
Yeah, and I just want to let you know.
No, I know. I hear you, and I appreciate it. I got a tendency to pay no attention to it. But I have seen similar videos like that where it really doesn't make any sense, right? They don't try to argue, or
well, they can't.
They don't provide any documentation.
They can't have the honest.
I think it's more about the title than it is a video, right? Am I right in saying that? The title is meant to attack me.
I think they want to.
The title was meant to denigrate, right?
Not sure. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not sure why they try. Barry Trower is someone who speaks about Wi-Fi a lot, and they do the same thing to him.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know about him.
Oh, I've had him call in and go and gobble like a turkey. It totally don't make any sense, right?
I don't understand what that is.
Like they call in and they go gobble 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 gobble.
Yeah.
Just a disruption, right? And that's the industry.
And,
the industry. They're probably from Greenpeace, eh?
Oh.
That's a joke. Go ahead.
And Nick the Bee.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, so that was
Michael. Mike.
No, I'm not James. I'm Michael.
Yeah, I was looking.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
So that was it. I just wanted to mention that these things are out there, and those of us who have watched and learned with you for many years, we don't buy into this crap. So I just wanted to.
No, it's upsetting, right? Yeah. I'm very cautious about giving these people a platform. Years ago, I didn't care. Now I work so hard, right, that I don't want to give them 2 inches because they refuse to have a conversation. They refuse to have a debate. They refuse to provide the documentation for any of their assertions. And when they do, it's usually just UN and IAEA, which has absolutely zero credibility, right? Because they got a legacy of being uncredible. Okay, Mike, we'll let you go unless there's something else you want to throw out there.
One more thing. I thought about you because I thought about, letting energy, giving energy to them, because I want to give them thumbs down. They only had maybe 35 comments on this one video, and not many views. And I wanted to land-base them, and I thought about you, and I said, no, I'm not going to give them thumbs down. Not going to do a comment. Just going to turn this off and hope Dana comes back on Sunday. And you did.
Yeah, I was really sick on Thursday. There was no show on Thursday. I was trying. I was waiting until the last second, and I couldn't shake it off. And so I said, okay, just don't do the show, Dana. And there was a good video, rather long video anyway from Wednesday of the bags, right? So that video was worth watching. Yeah, that one's worth watching a few times if you're not familiar with the subject for the other people. Okay, Mike, we'll let you go. I got lots to get through, and
all right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. Bye. And I'm very cautious about, and so I apologize to anybody, but I'm very cautious about giving the industry a platform when they're not being real. If they've got a legitimate point, well, that's fine, right? But if they're just mockery, then what's the point, see? It's an endless amount that done that to me. Sweden state-owned energy company Vattenfall is investigating possibly installing small modular reactors that don't exist. So, that's a betrayal when your country, major energy producers, are looking at something that don't even exist rather than renewable technologies that exists, that's seriously troublesome. That's extremely worrisome. Framatome and Ultra Unsafe Nuclear to form a joint venture to manufacture TRISO, and what they're talking about is manufacturing the fuel that Russia was supplying, which is 16%, which is mixed oxide fuel, but weapons grade, so-called down blended. And the nuclear industries in Seattle, over the years, I've had a lot of contact with these people, pulling gigs on me and calling me up at weird hours, pretending they're anti-nuclear, and then ultimately admitting they're not anti-nuclear, stuff like this. And it was quite shocking how sadistic these people actually were. And there was a lot of them, right? So now it's to the point where I see a number from Seattle, I generally won't answer it. If I do, it's with cautious. Ultra unsafe nuclear is a pioneer in the manufacture of the nuclear fuels, which is not true, and micro-reactors, which is absolutely not true again. Ultra-safe nuclear hasn't produced a single fuel rod or reactor. So to make this type of claim that they're pioneers, like this is like me saying I got a cure for fucking every disease on the planet. And it's a radium suppository. I could do a stick. Oh, well, wait, now the industry already done that for 20 years, right? And got sued for murdering all kinds of people. It's a true story. Imagine how sadistic the nuclear industry got to be to let them do something like that. Government film from the 70s, What to Do in Case of a Nuclear War, was so ridiculous, you can't even believe it exists. Every facet of nuclear has that same attribute on it. A drone films nuclear waste storage vault built in the 60s. This is one of the nuclear legacy waste sites. This is the first footage they got since the 60s. Right, so like almost 60 years ago, they locked nuclear waste 4,400 cubic meters, 4,400 tons of nuclear waste, high-level nuclear waste. Department of Energy, at the Idaho Nuclear Laboratories, folks. Idaho National Laboratories built on one of the biggest aquifers in that part of the country, on top of that. And so this is a shocking amount. What you're, like, if you read between the lines, the building can't shield you walking past it. It's not a vault. It was a haywire. It's really unsettling that they done something like that. And the numbers they're talking about, by the way, 10,000 roentgens per hour. And a roentgens is equal to 114 sieverts. So these are stunning numbers. 10,000 times 114 sieverts. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. So if you continue to read between the line, what you realize is everything is vented, right? Because this kind of waste is splitting atoms. That's why you're seeing, when you're seeing sieverts, it's because you're still splitting atoms. And what that means is they have to vent that, right? Because it's such a volatile gases that are being produced there that once you displace all the oxygen, if you reintroduce oxygen, then it's going to detonate. So the only way to mitigate that, and you can't mitigate it 100%, the only way to mitigate it is the constant venting. So you got a building with 10,000, 114,000 sieverts. It's just, man, it's disappointing that these people exist. Or, hang on. Yeah, I'm sorry, 1.1 million sieverts. In just a single building. So you're getting brutal doses just walking past this building. Driving past it, you're getting brutal doses. This is at the Idaho National Laboratory, which has contaminated the water for about 10,000 square miles. Permanently, on top of that. Well, they've been burning money on the aquifers there since the 50s, trying to mitigate it. Again, once it goes into aquifers, how are you going to stop that? How are you going to reclaim that? It's absurd to suggest you can, see? Exotic hadron research to advance knowledge of nuclear physics. Indiana University research is part of a 5-year, $11 million initiative from the degenerate U.S. Department of Energy to solve challenges and complex issues centered on advanced knowledge in nuclear. Nuclear should be banned, unfortunately, right? The people in the industry are our enemies. They hate the animals, they hate children, they hate insects. Unfortunately, any redeeming qualities the industry has, the industry is just too damaging and too dangerous to exist. There is no checks and balances, see? And there seems to be nothing too evil. Let's check in on the poll. How's the poll going? Is shipping food worldwide from Fukushima and surrounding nuclear wasteland prefectures a crimes against humanity? And we got an amazing 40 votes already, 98%. Someone made a mistake, but looks up and said no. So that's fantastic. Let me go back to that. Russia says it will consider the deployment of German Leopard 2 tanks as the use of a nuclear dirty bombs, which is what Russia's actually using depleted uranium on Ukraine. Because that's the only thing they got that can bust up the tanks and that, is the DORAM, depleted uranium low-level radioactive material. They got rid of the latter part of that acronym. Nobody knows why or who done it. And now they call it DU. But there's nothing depleted about it. It's gone through a chain reaction. So it's full of technetium-99, plutonium, americium, neptunium, strontiums. So they're going to consider the deployment of the German Leopard, which are like the tanks the Russians are using are firing 155 millimeter depleted uranium munitions. This is just one of the many dirty bombs they're firing. And so when they come out with headlines like that, it's usually to cover up what they're actually doing, see? Blame the other guy, right? Instead of before they point a finger at you. And so they're calling them silver bullets. The depleted uranium munitions is silver bullets. Now, I've heard that before, but it's pretty rare. Because it sounds better than depleted uranium, see? There's nothing silver in the bullets whatsoever. And of course, silver is associated with werewolves and vampires. Which in one way is appropriate, isn't it? Uranium core weapons were used in Iraq but are now largely discontinued. Largely, but not total. America's never going to stop using them. The United Kingdom's never going to stop using them. As far as I know, Canada's been using them. Were used in Iraq but are now largely it was used in the Gulf War, the highway of death, right, from Kuwait. It was used in Afghanistan. It was used in quite a few countries, actually. I think they allude to some of them coming up. Kosovo, Yugoslavia. Spent uranium fuel. Not very often you'll hear them use those connotations. To penetrate the thick steel of the enemy tanks. Silver bullet is, I can't remember hearing it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I covered that a lot pre-Fukushima, the depleted uranium. And I mean a lot. People have no idea, really, how for 10 years before Japan, I had all kinds of sites, but it wasn't public, right? I had public sites, but I wouldn't cover anything like this. It was just stuff that took my fancy. But the sites without my name attached to it, I was using to bludgeon different countries. China used to always kick me out because I had many sites in China. China used to close, he closed every site I've ever had dedicated to China pre-Fukushima. Depleted uranium is less radioactive than the isotopes used in nuclear bombs. It's true. It's still radioactive as oh shit though, it's still a dirty bomb. Italian soldiers were diagnosed with leukemia. Again, they're using the word silver bullets, which is obviously the industry wrote the story, right? The Iraqi war veterans that came back were in the tanks. It was like 60% had rectal cancer from sitting on the DU munitions, because in the tank you don't have a lot of room, so it was common to sit on the munitions, right? Not only that, but their clothing was contaminated, and so when they went back home and put their laundry in the laundry machines at their homes, they contaminated all the bed sheets and towels and kids' clothing and everything else. And then after that, there was a huge percentage of children born with debilitating deformations to the American soldiers. Dr. Doug Rockey was tasked with cleaning up the depleted uranium munitions by the Pentagon. He lost all of his teeth shortly after. Everybody on the team within 2 or 3 days broke out in huge sores throughout their whole body and became debilitated. This was originally the highway of death in Kuwait, right? Where they buried everything on site. And so, to give you context, the Ba'ath Party from Iraq, Saddam's elite Ba'ath Party, they went into Kuwait, they looted the banks, looted the jewelry stores and places, and car dealerships included, and they drove away with Rolls Royce stuffed with millions of dollars of cash and jewelry. The Americans used depleted uranium and slaughtered 300,000 of them. And instead of repatriating the loot, the gold, the jewelry, the diamonds, the money, they had to bury it in the desert because they used depleted uranium munitions on them. And what was interesting about that war was they didn't arm the soldiers until the day of battle, because the Vietnam War was over 10,000 commanders and officers were killed by the troops. And so they learned their lesson not to arm them before, because the soldiers were so sick of slaughter in Vietnam, they were fragging the officers in the mess tents, where when the officers were having lunch or breakfast, soldiers would run past it and throw in phosphorus hand grenades and stuff like that and maim and murder them, which was appropriate, I might add. And hitting a tank or a bunker, the depleted uranium munitions disintegrate, and up to 40% of the uranium, which is still radioactive, turns into a fine powder. And in these countries, they'd use that on all the homes. They'd knock down every home in Iraq and Afghanistan to get 10,000 Taliban. And so the families will go back after the military leaves, looking for forks and knives and plates and cooking utensils and blankets that are now contaminated with the DULRAM, depleted uranium low-level radioactive material, which is still extremely dangerous. And we know the Leopard tank 2, as well as the Bradley, the Mardner infantry fighting vehicles, are armed with depleted uranium armored piercing projectiles, which leads to the radioactive contamination areas, as happens in Yugoslavia and Iraq and other countries. Look at Vladimir Putin. So the victims will go back into the homes after to get food and cooking and eating and bedding and toys for the children, and it's going to be contaminated with doloram. Department of Energy got a $9.1 million awarded for quantum information science and nuclear physics research. They got tons of money dedicated to, but they got nothing to go for geothermal, nothing for tidal energy. And they're supposed to solve that. The ratepayers are paying, and not the Department of Energy. It's the ratepayers that gave the Department of Energy the money in the first place. So back to the poll. Like, this picture shouldn't exist. This is from the mainstream media in Japan. There's so much brain damage, they're actually publishing stuff like that and claiming that it's good. Is shipping food worldwide from Fukushima nuclear wasteland and the surrounding nuclear radioactive prefectures crimes against humanity? And we have an outstanding 98% of the people needed no convincing whatsoever to acknowledge that. Missileers are worried about new signs and links between services and cancers. And we talked about this for years. And there's not just cancer. There's 1,800 other illnesses and diseases. It's not just cancer. So whenever they only mention cancer, it's not that they don't know any better. This is how they manipulate the population for so many years. But when we don't see cancer clusters, as if cancer is not even the holy grail. Diabetes is, Down syndrome, autism, schizophrenia. Certainly heart problems, liver, lung, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. 36 cases were missileers, people that were willing to blow up the planet for a paycheck, were diagnosed with cancer. So the rest of them would have been sick too, with up to 1,800, one of or two or three of the 1,800 other diseases. 2023 projections on cancer. Again, you're ignoring all the diseases that comes with. If you're eating radioactive food, you can die of a heart attack tomorrow. Your children can have leukemia next week. France promises to speed up, hand over colonial archives and clean up the nuclear test sites in Algeria. But we hear that at least once every year in the last decade. At least once each year we'll hear that, usually during they want something or what. France contaminated everybody, first off, in the French Polynesian Islands. Every human, every animal, every bird, every insect. And they're permanently sick. And babies are born there, they call them jelly babies. They carried out nuclear testing there for 2 decades. And the population, they refused to acknowledge that radiation had any adverse effects. But each year they make a similar promise, usually at the beginning of the year. And it's not in good faith, it's something sinister. France promised to speed up handover colonial archives and clean up nuclear test sites in Algeria. Now in Algeria, that's where France gets all this uranium for its mines. For 60 years they have civil wars that are funded by the French, who have a permanent army there of minimum of 3,000 soldiers to protect their assets. They destroyed the government, they destroyed the economy, and destroyed the borders and armed neighboring rebel groups. So the country has been millions of people displaced and destroyed so that France can have cheap uranium, high-grade uranium, for its disease factories that are surrounded by farms. I'm pretty burnt out. Nothing worse than being sick all the time, eh? And because what I do, I consider it a privilege to do the things I'm doing. To come out and do these shows each night is a privilege. And I take it very serious that I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to come out and have a conversation that is overdue. And France has promised to speed up the handover of its colonial archives. And each year they'll say that, and then they'll lock them. You'll never get access to them. The people that committed the crimes are still alive, see? And so they're not going to release that. A lot of them are very high placed over the years, key government positions. And their children went on to be famous actors and musicians because of the crimes against humanity they created. That's who usually gets those jobs, right? If your parents were scumbags in the nuclear industry, you're going to get some... You could be working at NASA. You'll get jobs at NASA. Key positions with a lot of money and no responsibility as a kickback for your parents, and their parents being scum. So the Sahara Desert, that radiation blows back to France each year. And they buried so much nuclear waste down there after the nuclear war. There was a nuclear war, same bombs. According to the Algerian officials, France still holds 98% of the company's archives. The 2% they released, I can guarantee you, was propaganda. India and Pakistan on the brink of a nuclear war. Yeah, there's quite a few countries threatening nuclear war, isn't it? And so nuclear has no right to exist. And the people that are doing it is just a fraction of the population that are willing to annihilate the planet so they can have a high-paying job to keep this posturing going for decades to justify looting of the resources of your country. And that's the problem with the nuclear industry. Every facet of the nuclear industry is resource intensive. We were here, rockets packed with human intelligence and DNA to be blasted into space. To be blasted into space. I'm very confused about all of this. They're going to put DNA and human intelligence and blast it into space over fear of a nuclear apocalypse that they're engineering themselves. Humans are sending a rocket packed with evidence of civilization, DNA of Earth's flora and fauna, which is all contaminated now from Fukushima. Just conjure up whatever they want, right? Send all the precious resources into space. Why did they wait 40, 50 years to go back to the moon? Allegedly, they went to the moon there last month, right, with the artisan. But they didn't. They had dummies instead of humans on the flight. And they say, oh, they'll get there some of the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's only 3 days away. How come you won't go back? How come Russia didn't go up there? How come China didn't go there? How come India and Pakistan? If you can put people on a space station for decades, spend hundreds of billions of dollars on top of that, how come you can't put somebody on the moon? Which is, just keep it in first gear till he gets to the moon. First off, you got to pay to give them your DNA so we can resurrect it in the future. And not even a big scam known as the Ark. Will carry a particularly interesting looking time capsule into Earth's orbit. And should the Earth succumb to nuclear fallout beyond repair, which is Fukushima? Yeah, don't believe these people. Oak Ridge National Laboratory received 3 awards from the Federal Laboratory Consortium. Like all these national laboratories, these are disease factories. Their entire legacy is predicated upon radioactivity releases into your aquifers, your water tables, into your air, your farms, your cities, your communities. Directly, too. It's 80 years of irresponsibility, 80 years of hating on humanity. That's what their legacy. They got to give them these awards so they don't commit suicide every year, see? 300 federal laboratories, agencies, and research centers nationwide that work collectively, collaboratively, to shepherd technology out of the government labs and into the marketplace, like GMO, the scourge of humanity. And even worse, you got GMO in a nuclear wasteland as radioactive GMO. Hey, can we be any more evil? You know, we can make radioactive GMO if we grow it in Fukushima. They're like, yeah, how much do you want? Okay, we'll double that. That's what the industry is doing. So we got a poll. Let me go back to that one. You're growing. Just to give you context, food was banned for a decade by 55 countries and 14 prefectures. So if you go into the ground zero Fukushima, right by the nuclear meltdowns where nobody's allowed to live, where there's millions of one-ton bags and grow food, what does that mean, I wonder? It means that we got to get rid of all academic scientists in the nuclear industry. They're the most dangerous creatures in the universe, for goodness sakes. Here we got Einstein jokes about having nuclear weapons in his luggage at an airport. Nuclear weapon in the luggage, and gets a $2,000 fine. He's lucky they didn't get tased and curb stomped. The security are recruited from advertisement on pizza boxes and coffee cups. They're not. They carry weapons not through legislation but through administration. They can't arrest you. They got to call the police to arrest you. They're police only in their own illusional minds. He was charged under the protection from harassment for using threatening words that could cause alarm, and he received a $2,000 fine. I'm surprised he got off that easy. Can you imagine how stupid you are to say something like that? They should have made him go back to school. Anyway, that's stupid. Northrop Grumman's expected strong 2023 revenue as weapons demand surge. Weapons. Imagine if Northrop Grumman took all the effort and solved geothermal or renewable energy issues for a single year. Would we finally have a solution? Of course we would. Like, these are misery machines. These are just misery machines. Death machines and misery machines. No redeeming qualities whatsoever. Weekly Friday silent vigil for the women and men of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Bless their hearts. They're anti-nuclear, among other things, but as long as you're anti-nuclear, you're a friend of the birds and animals and mammals and humanity. Campaigners fear changes at Hinkley Point C could kill millions of fish each day. Well, Indian Point and let me see if I can find it. Yeah, they kill around, each plant's killing around 9 million large fish a year. 9 billion, I'm sorry. And 300 billion small fish, hatchlings, trillions rather of hatchlings, 300 billion of small fish. In different ways, the heat exchangers, the pumps, the screens, the actual boiling water itself. Hinkley Point, like a glass of salt water, typically got 1 billion creatures. Just a glass of water with 1 billion creatures. And 75 to 100 million of those are the phytoplankton, the bases of the food chain, the bases of the oxygen chain, the bases of the carbon sequestering chain. The very foundation. And they boil 1 million gallons a minute, which is 16 million billion creatures a minute per reactor. The fuel pools are hemorrhaging radiation into the environment. The Stop Hinkley anti-nuclear group has said this week the EDF Energy has refused to fit acoustic fish deterrent on its offshore massive cooling water intake heads. They're 40 feet wide, right, for the water intakes. And each 4,500 tons a minute, 1 million gallons a minute. And so those people are doing a great job protesting. They're very active. They're very clever too, eh? And they're focused on just single tasks, which is what you got to do in that, right? And so super proud of people like that. Bless their hearts to people that, because it takes a lot to do what they're doing. And they're up against pure evil. The nuclear industry in the United Kingdom, they are scumbags, man. Holy smokes. What they've done, like Windscale and Sellafield, which is the same, and Donneray, is horrific. It's horrific. The pollution has covered the entire planet in multiple generations now. The government's secret radiation experiments on United States citizens. Well, that's a long list. It's horrific. And that's a great article. It's not perfect. No article is perfect. And so each picture, underneath the pictures, you'll find articles. Few events in modern history are able to hold a candle to the nuclear annihilation of the planet, let alone Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Well, the fuel pools are worse than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's just not as visible, right? That's the scary part. When they dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they blew people and horses, because back in them days you used a lot of horses, and their pets and their children, 300, 400, 500 feet into the air. And they died from blunt force trauma when they were landing on top of that, if they were still alive. Imagine getting blown 300, 400 feet into the air. No single weapon has ever showcased such incredible killing power, except for 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. The enemy of all species, right? In the quest for nuclear supremacy, countless civilians, from children to inmates, cancer patients to expecting mothers, the exploited and harmed and sometimes killed in the name of scientific crackery. Quaker Oaks fed disabled children radioactive, 73 developmentally disabled children radioactive oatmeal filled with dangerous radioisotopes. Quaker Oaks. The children chosen for the experiment were told they were picked to join a science club and were not told of the incredible dangerous materials they were ingesting. Say, hey kids, you want to join a science club? And the kids were like, yay! And we're going to give you free Quaker Oaks. Imagine how evil you actually... That was the Walter E. Fernald School, which is still in existence. In California, the AEC conducted another experiment, full-body radiation, with the help of the University of California and the San Francisco Medical Center. The places where you're supposed to go in times of when your body, your health, are the very people you need to avoid at all costs. And they're still in operation, right? San Francisco's full-body radiation study, just as in Cincinnati, the tests were conducted to help gather data and information for the U.S. military. They went to war against their own citizens. The victims this time, however, weren't patients suffering from advanced cancer, but 29 individuals, some of whom were suffering from arthritis, but were otherwise healthy. And Virginia researchers from the Medical College of Virginia burn victims. Should the Medical College of Virginia burn victims be doing radiation experiments on humans? Because they're still in business. Ran experiments on the predominantly African American and the black community and the native communities of North America have been victimized for long as I can find. If there's anything to be done hideous to a human, they're the first go-to. Absolutely unbelievable. Just incredible contempt from the academic community. Of test subjects ranging from experimental antibiotics and this time deliberate burning and injections of radioactive phosphorus that were reportedly 50 times greater than the safe dose for a healthy person. And these were already compromised people. Many of the subjects had died agonizing deaths, and when they otherwise more likely could have been saved. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Idaho National Laboratory and a number of these national laboratories had the victims who died of radiation shipped to the United States and incinerated the bodies and sniffed the ashes for isotopes. There's around 4,000 people from Japan were shipped to the national laboratories in the United States to be tested for who died. There was 800 pregnant women were given what they call vitamin drinks and vitamin shots that were radioactive. And they followed the fetuses and the babies. When they died, when the funeral was over, the nuclear industry showed up, dug up the bodies, and brought them to the national laboratories, including Hanford, incinerated the victims and sniffed the ashes in the name of science for radiation. It's a humiliating legacy, isn't it? And all of these major institutions still exist that were doing the experiments. Are still on a pedestal. And was never held accountable, not a single one in all of these experiments. If you look at plutonium files one of these days, plutonium files was Bill Clinton had commissioned a report, a panel on human experiments with radiation. There was several thousand documented cases that came to light that the nuclear industry has nothing but contempt for us, nothing but, and I mean nothing but contempt. Let's keep it rolling. Johns Hopkins Hospital, which for children, radioactive school children. Imagine how insidious you got to be to take these wonderful children and irradiate the shit out of them. 582 children had radium rods in their noses. It was more than that, no less than 582 children. They put radium rods in their nostrils, right into their, close to their brain. And Johns Hopkins Hospital is still going strong, folks. Evil is real, and it never goes away. One thing about the nuclear industry is it never goes away. It just keeps getting more sadistic. It was many years until most of the children now grown up started to show severe signs of radiation damage. Prison area. Hitchhiking prohibited. Prisons in the United States around the world have historically been some of the researchers' and scientists' favorite places to conduct gruesome, dangerous, painful, and unethical experiments on humans. Yeah, we covered. Years ago, I had done 6 videos in a row on this stuff, and I still didn't scrape the barrel of what I got. I'd done 6 full videos on it in a row. And I'm not going to try to go through all of these medical experiments, but you can read through this. It's a lot of reading going on, a lot of pictures. 18,000 members of the U.S. military were intentionally exposed to intense radiation. Operation Plum Bob was not just for nuclear bombs, but for the victims, the experiments. Testicular radiation of prisoners, and they ended up having disfigured and deformed children after. 232 men were given the same radioactive treatment, but were not sterilized. Some went on to father children with severe and painful birth defects. And when those children died, you can be sure the nuclear industry dug them up and incinerated them later to sniff for radiation. I think it's stunning because I can't escape this long history of hating on the species and humanity. The history, the infamous Manhattan Project, it goes on and on and on, eh? The cruelness, incredible cruelness of this industry. It seems to know no bounds, too. The plutonium experiments, but there was files released on that from a Bill Clinton commissioned investigative commission. It was quite telling, and they only scratched the surface. And I've produced, over the years, quite a few presentations on that alone. Unfortunately, they took down my site when I was looking for spiders last year, out in the middle of the woods, 400 kilometers away from home, with no warnings, no strikes or anything, with 1,300 presentations on it, and all the research expeditions piled on it. And these were all connected to blogs worldwide, right? And all those links would have went dead too, you know? The list goes on. It's really, you can't keep up with it. We'll move on because you would have to do a whole show just on this one story to really appreciate the horror, and that these organizations and universities and institutions, Vanderbilt University pregnancy experiment, 800 pregnant women, mostly poor and uneducated, who visited the school's prenatal clinics, were incredibly poisoned with radioactive iron supplements. And we're told that there were vitamin drinks and vitamin shots. And all of these institutions are still out there slaughtering the population, foolish enough to end there. And they're put on a pedestal by the scumbag media. Yeah, it's really something. We got a poll to remind you of. Is shipping food worldwide from Fukushima and surrounding prefectures considered crimes against humanity? And we got a wonderful 47 votes, 96%. Look, you know, how can you deny growing food alongside of 1-ton bags of radioactive fallout a bad idea? How does that escape anybody? I don't know. Togo to ban exports of radioactive material to Russia. Tokyo. Russia should be happy. Why would you want to import anything from Tokyo or Japan? This is beyond me, by the way. 1.28 million funding allocated to cultivate the next generation of nuclear safety experts. That cracks me up. The next generation of nuclear scumbags. At Dresden. I can't remember where this is to. Hang on. Is this Germany? That's right. Well, Germany still got to decommission everything that they got. And why are they showing pictures of a Japanese woman, I wonder? Very confusing, isn't it? Has Germany got a lot of Japanese? Tiny radioactive capsule. Now, this story was from January 27. I think this was the first story that came out. Now, we know now it's 19 billion becquerels, disintegrations per second. The casing contains a small quantity of radioactive cesium, which is United Kingdom pronunciation, not Australian. cesium with an A. So whenever you see the word cesium with an A, then that's British, and which means this is propaganda. The British nuclear industry doesn't have a legacy of telling the truth ever. The public was warned to stay away from this capsule. It's so small, it's smaller than your pinky fingernail. How are you going to find it accidentally, I wonder? Commonly used in mining operations. Not commonly used. It shouldn't be used at all, right? It's like, so you can't they use americium-241 in your smoke detectors. Which reminds me, actually, just hang on. Oh, excuse me. I'm feeling a bit better than I was when I started. Not that that means anything. I want to see the half-life of 241. I thought 241 had a short half-life and decayed to plutonium. So just bear with me. Because I never thought about it before. I'll bring it up for you. Isotope decay data. I'll bring it up on the screen. I'll bring it up on the screen for you. So where's plutonium? I think plutonium is up by the americium. Oh, americium, right. So americium-241, I thought the half-life was just a couple of days. No, 241 got a half-life of 432 years. Or americium, rather. Yeah. So that's what your smoke detector got. So it's pulsing energy every second. What did it decay to anyway, out of curiosity? 237 Neptunian. So 237... I'm just curious what the half-life now is of Neptunian. Just hang on before I move on. 237 Neptunian is 2.14 years. Because we got plumes, haven't we, of Neptunian? I don't know what I got anymore. That's plutonium-239 and Neptunium-239. Neptunium-239 has a half-life of 2 days, I think. Let me check it out. 239 Neptunian. There's a half-life of 4 minutes. And it decays to... No, that's 229. 239. It's the wrong one. It's supposed to be 1.2 days or something. 2.3 days half-life, and supposed to decay to plutonium, right? Yeah, 239 plutonium. With 24 million year half-life. Or 24,000 year half-life. And plutonium-239, that's the disposition of radioactive fallout from 239. And that's one of... and that's also the 239 plutonium. These are from TEPCO numbers, by the way. Back to that story. The state's chief health officer, radiological council chair, a reasonable amount of radiation. Now that was the original story. There's only 2 more. I'm looking for something specific, but yeah, they don't mention any Becquerels in the first story. And they say it was only missing a day or 2, right? Today it came out it's been missing for 15 days. And the comments section said they should be able to fly over the area and detect this location. Something the size of the... Now, they done that at Fukushima, where the Americans did, from 1,000 feet up. And they got 3 million becquerels a square meter of just iodine-131, which is It's a very nasty isotope, but it's just a tracer because you're doing mathematical extraction, right? From we got a poll. Let's cover that poll. So food was banned by 55 countries and 14 prefectures, not just Fukushima. And in Fukushima, they're so brain damaged. That's not a slur. That's fact. They're brain damaged from the radiation exposure. Let's bring up the poll. That's not the poll. That's the poll. Is shipping food worldwide from the nuclear wasteland at Fukushima itself and the horrific surrounding prefectures crimes against humanity? And of course, that's exactly what it is. It's a horrific, insidious crimes against humanity. Health experts warn against releasing Indian Point's radioactive fuel pool water. So the fuel rods are in the pools to cool off for decades are still splitting the atoms. That water is saturated with plutonium and uraniums and 1,000 other fission products. It's still, and so each day the pools are boiling off 120,000 liters into the community. So now that they took the fuel out of the pool, an Indian Point, let me see if I can find it. We haven't looked for it for a while, so I'm not sure. But I got a good story there that I can find. No, not showing up. I got it there. I just can't remember what it was on there. Let's keep it rolling. I'm really bad at giving up, so give me a second. I never liked giving up. Unfortunately, I didn't label that particular story, and I had meant to a number of times recently, and I still didn't do it. And now that I need it, not much I can do, but let's keep going. Indian Point is a genocide machine on the marine species. And so is the New Jersey, rather. Health experts warn against releasing Indian Point radioactive wastewater into the Hudson River. Well, the Hudson River is supplying drinking water, and you have mountains there that are pushing the radioactive plumes from the fuel pools all the time. Remember, the fuel pools are hemorrhaging plumes all the time. That's what's seemed to evade everybody all these years. Doctors know there's no such thing as a safe dose of radiation, and that harmful impacts are cumulative, said the president of Physicians for Social Responsibility. Do you know who that actually is? Well, that's my mechanic bill from Friday. Moved the tanks. We had to get the whole fuel line, which was $200. Blah 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 blah. But we got it done. So I'm unbelievably grateful to have that done. It's almost impossible for anybody to understand. I think how much stress I'm under with that. And now that's done. That's a huge deal, man. I'm just unbelievably grateful. And there should be 1 million people on my videos. I should have no problem hiring people to go out and do the research and calling in and coming on the show live from ground zero, right? But the industry has got me completely isolated. They can harm 100,000 people who rely on the river for their drinking water. Well, it will. It'll harm every single person that drinks the water. And the radioactive plumes that are airborne, right? It's also the primary drinking water for several cities and towns. Manhattan, Staten Island, New Jersey, which you're talking millions and millions of people. Now, Dr. Helen Callercott has done hundreds of interviews that have left me confused. I'll play one of them for you. Now, she knows better, so I'm really confused why she's making... I put pictures in there to help her articulate. I'm going to play a clip for you. And she's done this interview hundreds of times, where she claimed that the building looks like the building to the left, not to the right. And people have defended her, saying she was threatened with a gun. So therefore, she should go out and lie to everybody for decades? See, you're not being realistic when you tell me stuff like that, folks.
Let me ask you this. You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States from ABC News and others that take video cameras in, saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
Okay. So the building actually looks like this one here, not the other one. So why is Helen Caldicott doing that over and over? Well, there's only one logical explanation for that. Let's give Kevin a Blanche a call, see if Kevin has an opinion on that. Or there's something else you'd like to talk about, maybe.
Gonna catch a cold from that ice inside your soul. Kevin D. Blanche, the Post-Ignorance Project.
Hey, Kevin.
Send a message. I'll get right back.
Oh, maybe he'll call me instead. Maybe that's what he was doing that time. Let me try it again.
Hello.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Dana.
How are you feeling, my friend? I know it's not very good. Would you like to give everybody an update, or is there something else you would like to talk about? Or?
Yeah, I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I'm still really beat up. You know.
Yeah, I can.
My pain subsided somewhat. My chest, I feel like the heart surgery went well, and I haven't had as much pain inside my heart as I did 5 years ago. But they went in my groin, and then down my leg, went to cut an artery out of my leg, and bypassed my perfectly good artery that these dumbass doctors ruined. Has bothered me.
Wow.
But I'm miles away from what I was even a week ago. I really thought I was going to pass away.
I did too, Kevin. I was worried sick, man.
Yeah, me too. I got close. It's brutal, but I've been going through it for the last 4 months, telling them what it was, and it's a miracle that I'm alive. I mean, a miracle, because that thing was pinched off. He tore that valve out, and it was all clogged up, and it ripped twice. Had 2 heart attacks because it was clogged, and they wouldn't listen. But that surgery was brutal. I mean,
they split you wide. They split you wide open, man. Wow.
All the way. Yeah, he did it the old-fashioned way. But I know him, and I've known him my whole life. My uncle, the famous Thomas Blanche, the famous heart surgeon, trained him. I wish he would have done it last time, but anyway,
yeah.
So I've been following along, you know.
You got a long recovery, haven't you, my friend?
Yeah, I've got...
You got 8 weeks at least. Yeah, at least.
Well,
no, you got 6 months, but like 6 to 8 weeks just to start doing things on your own, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be 6 to 8 weeks just on the bone.
Yeah.
You know that, and the heart.
Yeah. No, that's.
I'm walking a little bit, David, not much, and I'm still, pretty well just sit in my chair. Bedridden. My daughter been taking care of me. But,
So, so what was the symptoms leading up to it at the end before you finally got a diagnosis?
So what happened in September, I kept telling my heart doctor, I went right into him and my general, so I could feel the burning right in my valve. It's burning, it's shooting down my left arm, and I'm getting numbness. It's pinched off. It's that valve. I can feel it. That artery's pinched off. And he's like, no, when you're walking, you're getting better. And I'm like, that's because it's opening, because I'm pushing so hard. So they blamed it on neuropathy, and that went on and on and on. And it would go away for a while, then come back and stay for days. And I'm talking to everybody, including my heart doctor, right to his face and his PA, the quacks. And so on Christmas Eve morning, I had a heart attack. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I started feeling it, the pressure in my chest. I'm like, oh my God, and I hurried and chewed up a whole bunch of baby aspirin. I took him and called my daughter, because I ain't got a car and I live in the boonies. She come and got me. She says, want to go to the emergency room? No, on Christmas Eve. No, there ain't, so I gutted it out. I felt better, but I felt like it probably was a small heart attack.
Yeah, no, well, you recognized that this was really nasty.
It happened again New Year's Day, and I didn't want to go to the emergency room, so I got into see my dog on the 3rd, and he's like, still blaming it on neuropathy. I'm like, no. And they're scheduling me for a stress test. I'll do it in the next 2 weeks. I'm like, no. I'm going in the first thing they get me in. So I called them, they said, yeah, we get you at 9 in the morning. So I went in, and they did the stress test, and they says, your whole electrical system's completely fried out. We're going to have to do a pacemaker right now.
And you done that in your neck, right? Yeah.
They did at first. They put a temporary one in the
right.
neck.
Yeah,
they pulled it out. And I have one in the chest now, but they put that in a couple of days after the heart surgery. But when we were in there, they're just like, and I'm like, no. My daughter's arguing with them. And the guy that was head of the butcher shop, and again, he heard us. And finally, he's talking to them. No, this guy's had some event. And, they're all talking and arguing. So they finally, dumbasses, run the blood test that shows an infraction. And they're like, anything over 5, you probably had a heart attack.
Wow.
He showed up 7.9.
Wow.
So they went into my wrist. And they got in there, and the cath lab, they keep you alive. And you watch it on TV, your heart. And it's perfect. My heart was clean as a whistle. Just perfect. Couldn't find it. Finally, he stayed with it, that dude. And he says, let's go on your groin. And when I groin, he's in there a long time. And he says, there it is. Right above that valve, I can see the discoloration. And it ripped right there.
Holy crap,
so it was
man.
just exactly where I said it was.
You're so lucky, eh?
For 4 or 5 months.
You're so lucky, man.
I've been dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're totally just unbelievably lucky to be alive.
Yeah, again. I mean, it's been going on since 2011. It was all a heart murmur I was born with. My dad knew I was really mutated, fucked up. I'm a twin. We were preemies, underdeveloped lungs. My mom almost died in childbirth. But anyway, so I've been dealing with this severe heart murmur from birth. I knew I had it.
Yeah.
And it got worse when I was fighting cancer, but they couldn't operate because, my platelets were so low, and then I got kicked off insurance. And so nobody would touch me. And it's, we have no medical system here, but I got lucky, and I feel like they got it right. And I feel like,
are you getting any relief at this stage? Are you getting a bit of relief at this stage? Like,
as far as the pain?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the severe pain in my chest. I feel good in
you
my
just
chest.
got pain everywhere else.
My leg and my groin.
Yeah, because they got you sliced wide open. Yeah, it was crazy. That's a traumatic surgery, eh?
Oh, don't get more traumatic.
Yeah.
That ICU unit, you go in there.
From your neck to his belly button, folks. Split wide open.
Oh, all the way.
Then they had to crack your ribs open, then to pull that back.
Yeah, and then they take your heart out.
Man.
His own electrical system. But I trust him. He's a great doctor, Dr. Coffey. He's known him my whole life. And he came right in the next morning, and then you come out of there, and I woke up a little bit early, in the recovery. And with
I seen those videos, yeah, when you first started.
Breathing tube down your throat.
That was crazy, man.
Oh, you don't know hell.
I tell people, you want to go to, in fact, I told them I'm going to make a big neon sign down there in the ICU when you come out of there and just blinks, welcome to hell, for 2 days in there. People don't know pain suffering.
No, that's like holy stuff. I've had that done to me where they stuck the big hoses down your throat, the cameras. I passed out. It was so painful.
Yeah.
I passed out.
Get it out.
There was no anesthetics. I
tubes
passed out. Yeah.
No,
From
I
pain.
got the heart hiccups, they call. Fuck. There ain't nothing they do, but they hit with me with fentanyl every 15 minutes for days. So they stayed on top of the pain, and at night we stayed on, because I'd been through it before, and I was in that bone marrow transplant unit for so long. I've learned about pain medication. You have to stay on top of it. You have to be in front of it and stuff like this, because you lose control, they can't knock it down. Morphine, nothing will touch you. So they use fentanyl, and they hit you, literally every 15 minutes with it. And that goes on for a long time, and then they slowly back it out. I'm still on pain meds. But
yeah, I can imagine you are. Oh, my goodness. You got at least 2 months to go before
I'm
you
getting
get,
better, though.
before you
a lot
get,
better.
you'll be 1/3 better by then. So thank
The
goodness.
first 6 weeks are important. But there's some news out that came out yesterday that I found. Finally, this is the first time I've ever found them. So there's a foundation in Mexico, in the Laguna, who does the official well counts on the graves.
Wow.
And they came out and wrote a beautiful article 2 days ago about what happened. These wells were increasing in the crash, and they put the hard numbers out on the birth rate and the number dead, and the number's right on my number, what it was. They're talking a 40% decline just in the last 3 years, 60% decline since 2013, and when they were radically increasing. And they even go and say it's nothing, and they say it right there perfectly. They say they're enumerated as a starvation event.
Yeah.
And it was really well
There's
written.
10,000 dead gray whales since 2016, I believe the number was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
stunning.
This is the Mexican...
Starvation, too, folks. Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, and this is the Mexican biology. Sure isn't NOAA, sure isn't America, sure isn't any American academias. These are the actual Mexican biologists that stand on the lagoon and do a real count. And so it's verified, more and more of the hard data's come out verifying all our work. People can't deny our work anymore because the hard numbers are there. We have 11 years of data, yet we still get no credit for all this historic work you and I did. It's incredible that you and I did it. We don't work for anybody.
Nope.
We don't work for a university. We have no funding. We don't work for but we did it. And if you and I wouldn't have done it, it wouldn't have got done.
No. That's a fact. That's a fact, folks, yeah.
So we have all the data, and it's an acute collapse, so science can't deny it.
It's undeniable.
Science,
It's undeniable. Yeah. It's
Maybe
undeniable.
Crazy, maybe at first, but it is undeniable.
Yeah.
It's undeniable factual science because of an acute collapse. And it happened in
It's symmetrical through the species, yeah. And of course,
so
the gray whales depended upon the zooplankton, the phytoplankton, right? They were wiped out mostly first, yeah. And the krill.
And they travel along the California current. That's a 10,000-mile migration.
Yeah.
And they rely on that California current, which the Japanese current flows right into.
Smack, yeah, straight across, too. Right into it, man. Right off California, yeah.
Right on the Oregon-California border. And so it's another smoking gun. And people need to remember what a miracle it was and what increasing numbers we had in the grays. The grays were actually taken off the endangered list in 2009. One of the great comebacks. The salmon had record numbers until 2011. The ocean was thriving when Fukushima happened. Thriving.
Yeah, it was so,
That's an
yeah.
arguable document.
It was still healthy. It was perfectly healthy.
Really healthy.
Yeah.
Really healthy, and it was recovering.
Total
We had
extinction
record
event.
salmon returns on the Columbia.
That's an extinction event.
The Columbia River live cam has been out now for almost 8 years. And think about that one.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a cover-up?
It's shocking.
And everybody goes along. It is shocking that everybody's gone along. And all the so-called environmentalists, the YouTubers, the vloggers, whatever.
It's horrifying.
Just dropped the ball.
It's horrifying.
It's unbelievable.
The betrayal is just absurd, right? You know?
It's the biggest in the history of mankind. There's never been.
It's the biggest breach of academic science in history, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's biblical. I mean, you couldn't make this up. I mean, and people are still going along, but I don't know. All we can do is the work.
So, Kevin, I'm going to let you go, but what's your plans for the next couple of months?
Well, the next 3 weeks, I'll be...
You got to do physiotherapy, I guess.
Recovering here, and then we'll see in 3 weeks how I feel. I still need a car. I don't have a car. I'm not in a very good financial situation in all of this years. But I tell everybody, I'm exactly like the Pacific Ocean. She got sick the same time I got sick.
Where?
You know, my blue lady, and we're both fighting our ass off to stay alive, and we're not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on her, and she's not going to give up on me.
Where are you now, Kevin? I missed that part.
My daughter's house.
Okay, awesome.
I've been staying at my daughter's house.
She can take care of you temporarily, yeah. Thank goodness.
My grandkids and my daughter have been taking care of me.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. That's the best place for you, by the way.
Yeah.
You got some nice, strong love around you, right? That's a huge deal.
Yeah, otherwise I'd be in a convalescent home because you can't, it's impossible to take care of
And
yourself.
the donation buttons for you are on your main site, on your YouTube page, and then also under your videos, right?
Yeah. I haven't been putting them under my videos because I've been so sick.
But people go back pre-sick videos. They'll find the links, right?
For the first month of this since I got sick, I mean, there for a while I couldn't even see. I mean, my vision was so blurry I couldn't think. I completely lost track of time. I mean, I was out of it, completely out of it from the pain. Just gonzoed.
And you got.
I'm starting to get my head around me now a little bit.
Your head will come back, but not your body for another couple of months. You know.
My doctor says, you've had that bad valve from birth. He says, I fixed it. He says, you come back from this, you'll probably feel better than you felt your whole life.
Wow.
'Cause I felt it burn in my chest since the day I was born.
Yeah, that's horrifying, eh?
Yeah, it was a birth defect. It was a real bad heart murmur. Anybody that has one, they feel it. It burns, when you have it your whole life. Until you get it cut out, but I have confidence that I'll bounce back. And I have a lot of confidence that
so
you're
out
of the woods.
That's cool, man. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, because you don't know, right? We won't know until you got another couple of months punched in for sure how this is going to play out, right?
Yeah,
so,
and I got
thank God you got
the X-ray on me they don't like, and this is another thing, my doctors, both hard anti-nukers. And he's like, I'm not even going to try to pull that out of your upper chest because of the radiation. They're anti-radiation. They hate radiation. My oncologist, they don't like it used in cancer treatment. So he says, I'm not even going to mess with that upper one. I think the radiation's probably got it not the best, so I'm going to go in your leg. I'm like,
my
good
God,
for you,
eh?
man. So I have some conscious, good doctors now, I think. Well, I'm sure. I've known them my whole life. So, but before I didn't, they didn't give a shit because I was uninsured. So, but I appreciate everybody who supported me and prayed for me and our crowd,
There was a lot of people came in your comment sections, man. And
they were there for me.
Yeah, they were.
It meant a lot to me.
They showed up strong, buddy. That's for sure.
Yeah, they did.
And you see it on my videos all the time, Kevin. The whole time, right? There's tons of people making sure that everybody knew, right, that Kevin Blanche was this and Kevin Blanche was at this stage and that. That was fantastic, I thought.
Well, the thing is, before when we were contemporizing, I'd get 20, 30,000 views, everything I did. All we did, we had a bunch of fools for the most part. It's all been weeded out. Yeah, we don't have many views, but we have a very lean, clean, intelligent, dynamic, smart, understand the ecology crowd.
Yeah, no, 100%.
We have a good one, really good one.
Yeah, that's what matters, right?
They know their shit. They know their shit.
No, you're not pulling no wool over their eyes, buddy.
Nope.
No.
So that's all it's going to take. So we just keep battling.
Okay,
One day at a time.
we're going to let you
Thanks,
go,
Dana.
and super happy to hear some news anyway. I know you got a long way to go. So they can donate at
better.
your site on the top page, and under your older videos you'll find links. Good stuff. Okay, God bless,
Yeah, and
Kevin.
you could put the word out there. If anybody's got a good used vehicle, I could sure use one.
Okay, Kevin Blanche is looking for a
I'll even
vehicle,
borrow
folks.
it for 'em, okay. So
I'll
here,
make sure to
we'll
bring that
see.
up over the week here, and hopefully something
All right.
happens. They can contact
Thanks,
me if they
Dana.
can't get you, and we'll pass the number on to you. Okay,
Okay.
good to hear from
Keep
you,
up your
Kevin.
good
Yeah.
work, man. Keep
Yeah.
up your work. Okay, bye.
Hugs for your daughter, my friend. Okay. Take care. It's Kevin Blanche, of course, one of the most iconic activists in history from America. And despite the censorship, he continues to be a beacon of facts and extremely educated. Extremely educated, knowledgeable on all facets of this story. That was great. Nice to hear from Kevin. He's got a long way to go, folks. Let's not kid anybody. He's got a very long way to go. We're in it for 2 hours. We'll stop here and pick up. Hopefully tomorrow night. Hopefully the hospital doesn't keep me. I got problems myself, but not like Kevin. So we'll pick up here tomorrow night, and as soon as I seen his comment, I was like, "Oh shit! I better call him." I texted him first, and he said, "Yeah, he'll come on." You got to realize that kind of surgery, man. You might get a burst of energy for a few minutes, but then you're back to the reality. Saying he's got a very traumatic surgery in his leg and his chest, and then a pacemaker, and the whole. So I don't know. We'll see how the next couple of months play out. Is all I can say. Shout out to everybody tonight. Hugs for everybody. I'm not gonna do a call out tonight. And I got to get that cord for my cable to work out the phone, because that should have worked when Mike Shell called in earlier. And that would have been perfect, right? If we had got two of them on, if we had got two of these on plugged directly into the system, I got no excuses. Should have been done years ago. I'm trying to rectify it anyway. Yeah, good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night. Let's send a poll while we're here. One last call at the poll. If you made it this far, please consider giving me a thumbs up and the like button if that's possible. Is shipping food worldwide from Fukushima and the surrounding prefectures crimes against humanity? And I think that question is the most important question in history and very pertinent today. They've been doing it for 12 years. It's never going to be acceptable. It's horrific that they've done it. And all the food shipped should be shipped back to Japan, or destroyed, actually, so they don't ship it somewhere else. And heads should roll. There should be criminal charges to everybody that participated. Particularly in Canada, that lifted all the restrictions after 93 days. There should be crimes against humanity trials for the people that done that. And we're advocating that. So we have 96 votes, 96% to 52 votes. Good night, everybody. I'm going to read comments after. Extra hugs for James Lucet. And Stephen Young is out there. Hugs for Stephen. And we see Colette. Hi, Colette. We don't really see Colette too often, so hugs for Colette. She's always out there listening. We know that. It's just some people don't want to comment, right? But when you know somebody's out there all the time, it's hard to ignore and pretend that they're not out there. And I forgot to shout her out the last time, so I always felt bad about that. Because there are certain people that I do appreciate extra. So that's it for Dana tonight. Hopefully it all goes good and I'm back tomorrow night. If I'm not back tomorrow night, it's because they kept me in the hospital. I got my fingers crossed, but folks, hopefully it's something that is straightforward. Whatever it is, I'm going to deal with it. Because if not, the expeditions are over. I won't be able to ever do them again if I don't resolve what's going on. And that's not fair to this planet. So we got to deal with it. Got to gut up, and no matter what it is, I got to suffer through it. You can find Kevin Blanch's links to donate to him are in the top, I believe, top right-hand corner of his YouTube channel, Kevin Blanch. And under his videos pre-hospital, so go back a couple of dozen videos, and you'll find links to other ways to donate to him if you're able to do it. Good night, everybody. Have a great night, great day tomorrow. Hopefully all goes good, and we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Take care, folks. Good night, everybody. Thank you for finding the time, the courage, and the fortitude. We'll see everybody